Welcome to the Mostly Pottered at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 83 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. The United States followed their manifest destiny to push the country's borders from coast to coast. There was some wild in that journey west, and we were about to enjoy some tales about the supernatural horror that can sometimes jump out from that old dusty trail. Yes, we are discussing three Wild West ish films this week. We are going for Eyes of Fire, which I guess it's a kind of a lost in time thing, but I would guess that they give you 18th century, like late 18th century or something. So it's
I looked it up 1750 because I have questions about their guns in this movie.
well, it's whatever. It's 1700s. We'll say late 1700s. Not quite Wild West, but close enough for our purposes here. Ravenous, which is in the Wild West, but not. It takes place in a fort, a military fort. So it's not like the Wild West you're used to seeing, but it technically is the right time period. And then Bone Tomahawk is probably more what you're expecting from a Western, Wild West Western.
Oh yeah, it is hands down the wildest west of these three.
Yes. Okay, so I guess I'm starting with Eyes of Fire, which was in what
82.
82. So this is what some people consider a lost film. They like to say that it was marketed incorrectly, and like distribution issues really prevented it from getting out there. So like it technically did release, but I guess it just kind of fell off, and like no one knew what happened to it for a long time, and then it's been rediscovered relatively recently. I guess I heard buzz that it was like, ooh, it's interesting and a cult classic. I don't think I would consider it that. I guess we'll get into it here. I'm gonna be a little open and vague about what's going on because I still don't have any fucking clue what happened in this movie.
No.
So, okay. So essentially, it's kind of like the Scarlet Letter in the beginning, to where like the new preacher man in the town is one harboring a autistic woman who is considered a witch, I guess. But they gotta, I guess, assume that that's his wife because she's hanging out with him and living with him, and then he starts boning the local trapper guy's wife because he's gone for like really long periods of time. So there are like two women living with this preacher in a house, so the rest of the town decides to burn them all.
Yeah, it's Three's Company.
Right. I'm like, okay, so I guess like two women living with a man is like put him to death, like he's a polygamist is what they were, whatever. So they basically like string him up, and he's hanging, and then like they don't quite explain if the rope just breaks or if the old man shoots it. I mean, they're not really clear on that because like they're saying like, there's kind of supernaturally things happening, but he does come in shooting a gun in that general direction. So I don't, whatever.
Maybe it was the Eyes of Fire.
Yeah, I don't, whatever it is, he survives the hanging. Basically him and all his buddies in town. So it's like the kind of like crazy old man and his wife. The wife that he was having relations with, the young witch that was also living with him, and then a younger couple, and then there's also two children. One is the child of the wife he's having relations with, and the other is the child of the younger couple. And so they all like hold the town hostage, steal all their stuff, like steal their ferry that they use to get across the river, and just use it as a raft to just like float down the river. And like the preacher is, just being like, hey, whatever we stop, that's our promised land. That's where we're going to live. So they're floating down the river, and they get like attacked by a bunch of people, I guess, that are trying to avenge the town, I suppose. And like the old man gets shot with an arrow. And he doesn't die right away, but he dies pretty close to this point.
Yeah.
And then the witch girl like does some weird magic and like I guess somehow protects them from the rest of the bullets. Even though there was only guns firing, but somehow the old man got hit with an arrow.
It's the magic arrow.
I don't understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand. But so anyway, so they land and they get off and they find like this kind of broken down old town, you know, like a ghost town kind of thing. And they're like, oh, look, everything's already pre-built for us. Let's just live here. So they kind of like make their home there. And then all of a sudden, like these creatures are coming out. At first they think they're Indians, right? So they like build up these defenses to protect against the Indians. But like eventually we find out that it's like these people that come out of the mud and the trees. And these people were apparently spirits of people who lived there before and then were killed by this local like witch. And then the witch made them be part of like the earth and the trees. So like to the point where you can like see their face in the trees.
Right.
And like over time they kind of like, I guess, whatever, one by one they kind of like all get like captured and or killed by the stuff. So like the younger couple, the guy dies, the older lady, she kind of like turns against the preacher guy and then she ends up getting, you know, running out and just getting captured. The trapper guy comes back, like the guy that, you know, the preacher guy was messing around with his wife. He comes back to help them. But kind of sees how much of a jerk the preacher is and how much like in the pocket everybody else is. And he's kind of trying to like lead them in the right direction by like, hey, this place is like cursed. We should like leave now.
Right. Because he actually has a good relationship with the local natives. He respects them and their culture and everything else like that.
And he speaks their language and everything. So like, yeah, they're like scared of the Indians, but like it's not the Indians that are attacking them. It's these ghost people, but like they're like too dumb to like understand. So the trapper guy's like trying to get them out of there. They won't listen. He's trying to get his wife and his daughter out of there, but the wife is like, you know, clinging on to this preacher guy and she won't like go. So he's eventually trying to convince them. He tries like leaving on his own and then comes back anyway, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so and basically everybody gets to the point where they're dead except for the witch girl who's like helping them, can somehow like cast anti-evil witch magic or something.
Yeah.
I don't, again, there's a whole lot of bizarre things with like people splashing around in mud and like coming in and out of trees and like weird negative flashes when like people are getting attacked. And I don't know. I don't know what the fuck happened at this point.
And there's people standing there and then boom, they're not there. Then boom,
and then
they are
not
there.
And then sometimes they're monster people. Sometimes they're just other people. Like what? You know, I guess they kind of talked about there was the people that were there before them were like a bunch of French people. I guess they're trying to say it's them, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's a whole lot of shit that's not explained in this movie. So anyway, yeah, one by one they all kind of die off to where it's just like the preacher, the wife, and the two girls, and then the witch girl.
Yeah.
And so eventually they all kind of like leave. The one girl, like the mom, was like, no, you can't go. The younger lady is like, no, you can't go. You got to stay here. So the trapper guy tries to take like his daughter, who's looks like as old as his wife.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
it was very confusing to me. I'm like, that's your daughter? She's like the same age as your wife. Like your wife is like 30 and she's like 25.
Yes.
It was so weird to me. Like I couldn't figure out like who's who. I'm like, cause I like there's two little girls and I was like, okay, one of the little girls is his daughter. No, this one is. That's like 20, looks 25. Like what is going on?
Yes.
So anyway, so he takes them out in the woods and like they somehow see the witch. So then they climb up in the witch's tree and somehow the witch can't see them. And then they're like, up there like all night until they like drop a box and then the witch sees them in the tree. And then they like have like a weird standoff to where they run back to the town. Again, watch the fucking movie if you really want to understand, but I cannot. recommend to watch it. But eventually, they like the good witch like fights back against the evil witch, and then they defeat her, and then it's like the trapper guy has to like. Well, he's okay. He became a part of the tree, and then he fought his way out of the tree, and then killed the witch with the good witch's help.
Yeah, essentially he died and then came back as a normal. Instead of coming back, like we see him transform into one of these like tree bark people, essentially.
Mud people, yeah.
Mud people, yeah. And then eventually he's like, "Oh no, sorry, I'm okay."
Yeah, and then his clothes are like pristine, clean. It's very bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just like leave, and of course the preacher and the other lady stay there, and then I eventually just die.
Right, and they send off the two children and his daughter in a coffin and float them down the river while they're fending off things with guns.
Right. And then like, this whole movie is kind of framed where they're being interviewed by like the French authorities because they drifted back into French territory. And then like at the very end, the French are like, "Oh, that's very interesting." And they get up. Okay, well, that guy is like the worst fucking French accent I've ever seen in my life.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm like, dude, I can do a better French accent than this guy, and I don't even fucking know. Yeah. So, yeah, then he gets up and he's got like the evil witch lady eyes, I guess, signifying that that is like I guess he's the witch or the witch infected him or something. I'm not exactly sure. But I'll let you talk.
Yeah, that's pretty much just it. My first thought was this is the Scarlet Letter meets Exorcist 2 meets Evil Dead, and take the worst parts of all three of those things and make this movie of it. Yeah, I mean, like I'd say Exorcist 2 just because of the zany like visions and the creatures and the mud people and all this like psychedelic tropes that are kind of going on in this movie. And funny enough is earlier today at the time of this recording, they were saying this is a lost movie, and Salem and I collect Laserdiscs, and I happened to see it. I'm like, $50? I'm not paying $50. I'm like, for this movie? No, I'd pay like $2, maybe. And we had heard about this through, as we said last episode, in the Search of Darkness. I think it was in Search of Darkness Part 3, because they were kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for some things, and they found this. Scraping.
I specifically remember them saying it was a Wild West movie, or ish, right?
Ish.
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Whatever.
It's definitely marketed, and like the tags on Wikipedia on everything else says Western on there as well as horror. So I will get into the points, but yeah, this movie could probably have stayed lost as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what was your first thoughts? Because you had never seen this either, I assume.
No, yeah. I mean, again, I was very confused because I had to I was like overthinking what was going on, and then I was underthinking other things. So I just it's like a whirlwind of like what the fuck is going on. I mean, like obviously you can the gist of it you get, right?
Yeah,
but there's just so many like of these weird details that are happening that there's no real purpose to them. They're just like messing around.
Yes.
Like there's a couple of scenes where like the mud people are like in the ground, like splashing up and down in like the mud and the leaves for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to like show that they're earth people. I don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of that though.
See, I consider that the pull that they got from Exorcist 2. Stuff that just doesn't belong and makes no sense to the story.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what was going on, but I just wanted it to end.
Oh yeah, this movie was way too long, and I was looking at the cast just because I'm curious when we watch stuff like this, And Rob Paulsen, the fantastic voice actor, plays the husband of the young couple. And I'm like, he's a voice actor. He probably could have done the French accent for the guy, because clearly he couldn't do it himself.
No, it was bad. It was like one of the worst accents I've ever seen in a movie. Like, just have him talk normally and say he's French. That's better than what he did.
Right, because there's always that rule in movies that when, even though someone would be like in ancient Greece and they're speaking English, is because we are hearing it, they would be in the movie speaking their ancient tongue, but we are hearing it in modern times, right?
Yeah. And I will also say the preacher guy looks like a dollar store version of Kyle MacLachlan.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that's why I looked him up. I thought he was the captain. I thought he was, from Twin Peaks. I'm like, no, that's not him. He seems too old to be there.
Like I said, he looks like a dollar store Kyle MacLachlan. Like, from certain angles, it's like, is that Kyle MacLachlan? But you look at him dead on, you know it's not.
Right.
But there's definitely angles that he looks a lot like him.
Yeah. Do you want me to do my highlights first?
Go for it.
It's a movie. It got made, so kudos for them. It's such a confusing ass movie that I feel like they had a strong premise, maybe. I'll give that for them. I guess it felt like it could have been the late 1700s. So atmospherically it was fine.
Right.
That's all I got though. I'm stretching for those.
Okay. I will say this. As far as horror movies go, it is original. There's not another horror movie I can think of that tries to follow this same storyline.
Well, yeah.
Okay, again, I'm looking for good things to say here. I will say this is an original story that I have not seen before or since. I will say the scene where they shot the tree child and it exploded like a nuclear bomb was hilarious.
Oh yeah.
That was funny. There's a scene with this. That was another stupid thing that happened, is like the tree people made a normal looking child and then gave it to the preacher, and he was like, oh, look, the Indians love me, they gave me a baby. Yeah. And then the child is just like evil, and then it has this ridiculous looking serpent makeup or something, I don't know, but it looks goofy, and then it like turns evil and then runs away, and he shoots it in the back and it explodes.
We got one shot here. We're doing every piece of gunpowder pyrotechnics we have in this one shot.
That's like a nuclear explosion like that.
Yeah.
And then I will say, the tree witch. This is only sometimes. I'm prefacing this with sometimes the effects were interesting. Most of the time it was not. Most of the time it looked real bad. It looked like they were wearing like a blanket with a bunch of leaves taped to it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it did look interesting. Like they did some interesting things with like the, going in and coming out of the ground and stuff like that. Some of that was interesting. The majority was not, but I will give it that. I try to have at least three, three good things. I'll roll into my low points. One, okay. The beginning is like they're supposed to be like Puritans, but even they didn't know why they were going to kill the guy.
No.
Like they were just like, cause you're a polygamist. And it's like, this lady is clearly like mentally disabled. Like he's not married to her. She doesn't understand what marriage is. Like who in their right mind would think that he's married to two women? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Cause he was like, they said he was new in town. He was only there for like a couple weeks.
The brand new preacher, yeah.
Right. So how are you going to make this weird ass decision of whatever, dude?
He has a finely dressed wife and one that wears a burlap bag.
It was probably because like the wife he was messing around with was 30 and her daughter, quote unquote, was 25. Right. That's probably why she's like she's a witch or something. I don't know. Whatever. It was stupid. Whenever magic is used in this movie, is probably the worst magic sound effects I have ever heard. It was like somebody did it in their backyard and just went like whoa 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 whoa, like literally. That's what it sounds like. It's horrible. It's like they put this like glowing like Jesus filter on the camera, and they go like whoa, 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 and that's it. That's magic is happening. Magic is happening because evil magic is happening because the film turns negative.
Yes,
and they go like ring, like that. Literally, that's it. Those are the only two like sound effects in the movie. Okay, now the dude, the younger couple,
yes.
that was with them. That guy had the worst fake beard I have ever seen on anyone. It was like a line of hair that they just stuck to his face, and there are angles that show the bottom of his chin and the side of his face, and you can very clearly see it's been shaved and is bald. And it's just this hair stuck to the side of his face. It is horrendously bad. It was comically bad. I was laughing every time I saw it.
Poor Rob Paulson.
The child acting is so bad in this movie. And this is the worst part, they have one of the children narrating the movie. Like the worst actor in the movie is the child by far, and then the child is then narrating these voiceovers. It is just baffling. Like, why?
Mama put me in the coffin. I don't know what happened after that.
Like, what the hell? Yeah, and then like the witch is like in the beginning of the movie, she's like autistic and like screaming nonsense, and then by the end, she's like speaking the king's English.
Oh yes.
I was like, what is going on? Nothing is explained. I mean, the preacher just sucked. He was just a terrible person. Why anybody believed a word he said is beyond me. You could go. I'm done.
I mean, you can go on forever on this movie.
Oh.
Okay, so I had to look up the year. I'm pretty sure in 1750 you didn't have multiple shot handguns.
They did, but they were like they'd had multiple barrels, and none of the guns they had multiple barrels. So yes,
correct. The chopper shot 3 times with.
But was the camera on him the entire time?
Yes.
Are you sure? Did it cut away? Did it cut away for a second? This is you. You are Mr. Evil Dead lover. Whenever the camera is off of Ash, you hear, and now he's magically reloaded every time. So maybe that happened. I mean, obviously, it's like you're packing. This is like black powder musket era. So yeah, it would take a minute. But yeah, so unless he's like the fastest packer in the West.
Yeah, he'd be dead. Unless he had like 3 different, unless he had the pirate bandolier where he had 3 different guns and just quick draw the gun.
That's called a brace. It's called a brace of pistols.
Unless he had that.
Yeah, I don't know. That was happening a lot though. I was like, wait, what? But at this point, the movie was so bad. I was like, I'm not gonna bother counting because I don't care. Musket rounds I don't care about because people are dumb with the muskets. They think they can reload them in like a half a second. Like even like the fastest snipers of that time period, it still took them like 30 seconds. Right. 30 seconds doesn't sound like a lot of time until you're trying to load a gun on a battlefield. Then 30 seconds is a really fucking long time.
As natives with bows and arrows coming at you, yeah, he's dead. Like if he had there's no way he did all 3 quick fire successions.
Right, that's why they would like in those days the soldiers they would have 3 lines.
Right.
One line would shoot,
retreat,
kneel, then they would start immediately reloading. Second line, fire, kneel. They would start immediately reloading. Third line, fire, kneel. They would start reloading, and then hopefully by that time the first line is done. Yeah, that they repeat that.
The grandma. I got hit in the head with a rock. I'm blind. I got hit in the head with another rock. I can see again. I got hit in the head with a rock. I'm blind. I'm like, that's not how this works.
I don't care.
She kept going from sight to no sight just with a random hit in the head with a rock.
Like I said, I didn't notice, but by that time I probably wasn't even paying attention because this movie, I was like, I literally, I had to do other things while it was playing because it was boring me to tears.
Yeah, it was atrocious. The Exorcist 2 effects of people there, people not there, people there, people not there was horrendous. And I like when the mute witch goes into the forest, like, oh, she killed a bird. How many thousands of feathers were there? That is multiple birds that she.
Well, she didn't kill a bird. She found that. That's why they decided to go there, is because the Indians will see that and think it's a bad omen. They won't follow us. That was the witch marking the territory.
But feather-wise, I mean, what? 50 pounds of feathers?
Oh, easily.
How many hundreds of that?
There was a clear layer on the ground that was disguising the foliage, which, I mean, if you put feathers on the ground before, you know how many that is. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Like, they blew their budgets on the explosion of the gifted child
right.
and feather budget.
Yeah, the child's serpent makeup that you see like 2.5 seconds of, and then the giant nuclear explosion when they kill it. That's it. That's their budget right there.
Yeah. I found it. I think it was. I couldn't tell that the old man was dead. They're like, oh, we'll just float him down the river. I'm like, oh, I guess he's dead. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because he got like hit with an arrow, and then he was like fine.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, next scene, he was dead. I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah. You know, and every good person knows that you want to protect your children. Make sure to nail them into the coffin before you send them down the river.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I'm like, what?
If water gets in there, you don't want them to get out. You want them to drown.
Yes. Yeah, like I felt like the preacher belonged in like the worst imaginable crucible. Like, he is that kind of a douchebag guy.
Okay, here's what I think. I think this movie started off as like Scarlet Letter fan fiction. You know what I mean? So we're like, ooh, what happened if, like, you know, Hester Prynne and the pastor like actually got to live out their love fantasies? You know, like, that's what it feels like. The beginning of the movie feels like that. Like, God saved the preacher's life because they were meant to be together. Oh, Dimsdale, right? Wasn't that his name? I think so. I don't know. I read that book like 12 times. Because I kept going to different schools, and then every school I would go to would be just starting to read that book, and then every time I would go the next semester, I'd get a different teacher, and then that teacher was teaching that book. I swear I read that book like 12 times.
Yeah, and I gotta say though that the preacher's wife, aka the trapper's wife, for being 1750, was showing a lot of breasts.
Well, yeah, because she was lustful for the preacher.
Yes, I guess. And sometimes she was Irish, sometimes she wasn't.
Dude, I don't know. I don't know what was going on in that movie.
Yeah, and then, you know, like, oh, what happened to Mama? And this other person, they shot people somewhere. They shot off screen. I'm assuming they lived. I don't know.
Again, who knows? I mean, the movie, it just ends. There's no ending. It just ends. I am eagerly waiting for Eyes of Fire 2. Electric Boogaloo. Eyes of Fire 2. Return to the Prairie. Or
Yeah, I will say that, yes. I had to. This is easily the most painful movie to watch in quite some time.
All right, so this week we're doing Chuck Wagons out of 10.
Chuck Wagons?
Yeah, I know there's no Chuck Wagons in any of these movies, but Chuck Wagons is a very Wild West thing. So we're doing Chuck Wagons. How many Chuck Wagons out of 10 would you give Eyes of Fire?
God. 0.5.
Not even any points for originality?
That's the 0.5.
Nothing? Wow.
That's the 0.5.
Wow.
I cannot recommend this movie to anyone.
All right. I'll give it 1. I'll give it a full 1 Chuck Wagon out of 10. I mean, obviously it's not very much higher, but it gets 1 point because it is original. At least they didn't recycle some old garbage. That's your 1 point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so our next movie is Ravenous, which I think was what, like
99.
99. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
because Jeffrey Jones is still an actor in this.
well,
So-
yeah, his fall didn't happen until like well into the 2000s.
No. I was trying to remember that, but I'm saying right off the bat, this cast is stacked.
Yeah.
Like stacked, stupidly stacked for a movie I never heard of.
Well, I saw this movie back in. It probably wasn't 99, but it was in the, like early 2000s. I saw it. There are some things I don't quite remember, but we'll get into that. But yeah, no, you got Guy Pearce, who's like, at this time he was pretty unknown, but like now he's very well known.
Yeah, Robert Carlyle.
Robert Carlyle, yeah, like, and this is, I mean, he's been in a lot of movies. I don't know if I've ever seen him in other American movies. He's been in a lot of like UK movies. Yeah, we got Jeffrey Jones, of course. I mean, David Arquette. That makes
Yes, we have two David Arquette.
yeah, that's like his first appearance in this movie. Yeah, there's quite a few.
So I'm just going to
Sorry. Neil McDonough is the other guy. The guy that plays the soldier guy. He's been in a ton of shit.
He looks, I'm going to say it right now, he looks exactly the same. 25 years
basically
later, he
does,
looks exactly the same.
He basically does. Put a little bit of dusting gray in his hair, and otherwise that he's about the same.
His bleach blonde hair, yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially we get introduced to kind of, I'd say, clips of this is preface the Mexican. I looked this up because I didn't know what war it was. The Mexican American War. So this takes place 1840s.
Yeah.
I
Well,
believe.
okay. Yeah, just the Alamo.
The Alamo.
The
yeah.
Alamo was the Mexican American War when they were fighting over Texas.
So anyway, we kind of get flashbacks of the battle being won and the guy Aaron just devouring very undercooked meat. And flashbacks of the guy Pierce of essentially surviving a slaughter because he feigned death and he's being piled with bodies on top of him, and kind of just like he's having flashbacks to the disgustingly bloody meat and then the bloody corpses around him. And he was able to kind of single-handedly capture the post, but like I said, he's like, oh, you were gone for like months.
Well,
right?
where did he get the strength to take it over?
Yes, we are introduced to cannibalism
In this world, yes.
Yes, in this world. Also, I'll preface this right now. Wendigos. Wendigos. Sure. I mean, yes. The moral is don't eat the sweet meat, right? Or you get turned into Wendigo or Wendigo, however you want to pronounce it. So essentially, yeah, he's having flashbacks of like, oh, I can't eat this raw meat. It's disgusting, because he's kind of having like PTSD from it. And he kind of questions how he stayed alive, right? And was it really worth it? Even though he was given, a medal or banquet in his honor for doing what he was able to do. So anyway, like I said, that's all kind of happening, and then they're kind of sleeping one night, and he is talking. I don't remember. He's talking to, was it Jeffrey Jones at this point in time?
Well, essentially, the general that gave him the award basically discovers that he wasn't a hero that deserved the medal. He was just a coward that got it by happenstance. So he punishes him by sending him to the ass end of nowhere.
Yeah.
Which is this fort in the middle of California, which is basically just a stopover point for people on the wagon train headed west.
10 people there?
Yeah. So yeah, the even in the like the time, like the popular times, which is not winter, there's not many people there. But in the winter time, it's a skeleton crew of, I think the grand total of all the people there was like 5.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it's basically in the middle of fucking nowhere. So it's like being like sent to Alaska in our modern time. He gets sent in the middle of nowhere as a punishment to get him away from him.
Right. And they have a guy who's just obsessed with the bottle in there all the time. Anyway, and so Guy Pearce is kind of going there and he sees like a figure through the window, and they look outside and it's some drifter and he's got frostbite. So they strip him naked, give him a hot bath. They all start rubbing him and trying to keep him alive. And we introduce them to obviously Robert Carlyle, which kudos to them. I didn't recognize him right away. So anyway, he's talking about that. He's malnourished and all this stuff. And he's talking about like he was kind of part of this wagon train, so we got Hansel truck wagons, right? I think they took a shortcut to go through a path to get to the Pacific West, right? Everyone's kind of going to California way.
Well, their guide, who is supposedly a military colonel, told them that he knew of a different pass that would save them time. And essentially, it did not. And they got stuck in the snow, and they couldn't move, and they got stuck up in the mountains.
So, right, and that fun inspiration is the Donner Party is for this movie.
Right.
Which is pretty much exactly what happened in the Donner Party, right?
Well,
so a lot more people.
Well, I mean, yeah, but not quite so
right
ridiculous. But eventually, yes.
Right,
and he's talking about they did eat people for sure. But they didn't like it didn't happen the way that this movie.
I think Robert Carlyle ate more people than Donner Party ate. There's like 2 people in Donner Party, but anyway, it's like I was out there for months. You didn't have any food. Like I didn't have any food, but there's stuff to eat, and and he's kind of talking about he had to eat people survive, and that kind of like triggered the PTSD in Guy Pearce again. And he's like, what was it like for you? Like he's very inquisitive about this because they're talking about their local lore guy who talked about the Wendigos, right? There's
Wendigos.
Wendigos, talking about like what that was. We get the kind of a lore background of the creatures, and that the Native Americans talked about this, that you shouldn't eat humans because you would never satiate the hunger. So, they really go into that lore for people who don't know about the Wendigos, and kind of what goes to it, right? So he's like, hey, I think there's still people out there. We got to go find them. So they all, the whole garrison of 4 people.
Well, yeah, they left the drunk guy behind.
Right.
And then David Arquette and the kind of Indian lady who works there went to town to get supplies, so they weren't there. But everybody else went.
Yeah. So anyway, they get there.
Yeah, Jeffrey Jones, Neil McDonough, the Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus.
From American Gods. I was like, I can't think of the show, but yeah, Jesus Prime from American Gods is the one like private there, and then Guy Pearce, yeah, and I think that's all of them, and then Robert Carlyle.
Yeah, and they all kind of go there. He's like, okay, this is in this cave. So Neil and Guy Pearce go down there, and they're like, oh, these carcasses are like hanging upside down. I'm like, wait a minute, how many people did he say was in the party? They go, 6. Where's this extra body from? It's a trap. And like Robert Carlyle's character is just starting acting crazy, just like digging up, and they're all just kind of staring at him. They're like, okay, cool. And they're staring at him, digging something up. Scream out, it's a trap. And lo and behold, it is a trap. He led them there to kill them and eat them. So I guess the best way I can say it is wackiness ensues to where he kills a bunch of them.
Yeah.
He like kind of guts Jeffrey Jones. He kills the poor private, and him and Neil kind of pursue. No, the private's still alive. They kind of go after him. He's chasing after the private. and they eventually find him. His like stomach is just like torn open, like a sheet has been taken out of his stomach. They attack, try to kill Robert Carlyle, and he gets the upper hand. Neil kind of falls down the cliff, and then Guy Pearce's character goes, "You know what? I'm jumping too," and jumps off a pretty large cliff, and then hits some trees and kind of rolls down there with Neil's body, and they land into a pit. And he's trying to survive there. He's having flashbacks of being trapped. His legs kind of broken, and he's cold.
It is very broken.
Yeah. And then kind of resort to, we'll just get to this point, kind of eats him to get sustenance, and he kind of is able to heal for the most part. And we see Robert Carlyle taking the other bodies and everything like that. So eventually, he's able to get out of the pit, and he makes it back to the fort, and like, oh, what happened? And everyone came back with supply mission, like, oh, we don't know what's going on there. He's like, oh, this happened. And like, wait a minute, here he is. He's alive. It's Robert Carlyle. He's like, he's clean shaven. He's
well, they say, okay, well, that's nice. Right. But then they say, well, by the way, the new colonel's here.
Yeah.
And it brings in, and it's him. And then he freaks out because he's like, this is the guy that killed everybody. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he's fine. He's like, oh, I shot him in the shoulder. Take off your shirt. No, the other shoulder. It's all healed. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he confesses to Boyd, like, yeah, I did it. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. And so Boyd is Guy Pearce's name. I finally remembered it. And he's like, oh, this is kind of what happened. And he's kind of chained up because he doesn't believe that the new colonel is on the up and up. They're like, oh, he is clearly wrong. And he kind of gives the backstory. He's like, hey, I had tuberculosis before I started eating people, and well, I'm better now. And it's kind of this whole thing that he wants to do, and he's absolutely fine. So anyway, poor David Arquette gets killed. I'd say brutally. And I believe all the horses as well, because he's kind of going through the stable like, oh, and there's like horse heads and decapitations, like, oh, this, saying that Boyd is just insane.
Well, it's also preface it by saying that he was watching the colonel the entire time.
Yeah.
Like his eyes never left him. And like every time the colonel like moved or made any sudden movements, he would like jump up with a knife. Like he was very ready to fight against them. So when they found out that this stuff happened, he was like, how? I was watching you the whole time.
And twist, Jeffrey Jones is still alive.
Right.
Aha, it was me. Well, and they just go on kind of just killing everyone else. And they make the cowboy stew where it's just the pot that just never always has a fire. They just add stuff to. And lo and behold, they're starting eating people again. And Jeff Jones was I'd say eviscerated pretty well. For him to come back from that is pretty astounding.
Well, yeah, but that's the magic of cannibalism in this world. Like, that's how he got the strength to take over that place in the beginning, is that all the blood that from all those dead bodies went down his throat.
Right, the strength from the man.
And he got the strength from all the dead people, so that's how he was able to win that medal. And the same thing, like, his leg was very, very broken, and so he ate a little bit of the other guy to heal his leg enough to get home. But he hasn't embraced it. He only does it when it's necessary. But Robert Carlyle has embraced it, and he is doing it on purpose, and that's why he's like super strong and fast and healthy.
Right, and that was enough for Jeffrey Jones's character to kind of get up and get back from being eviscerated. It's like, hey, oh man, we're gonna have look out to the east, like, oh man, we're gonna have new people passing through here to this garrison. It's just be fresh meat all the time. And Boyd and Jeffrey Jones have this talk. He's like, you know what? I done messed up. Just kill me, make it quick. And he just slices his throat, splatters blood everywhere, and then he has the showdown with Robert Carlyle. And a huge ass bear trap. He tackles him into it. So they're both pinned there, and like, well, you know, one of us is going to die first, and the other is going to have to eat that person to get the strength to survive this. Carlisle dies first, and then, you know, the Native American sister cocks in and he's like, yep, you're the Wendigo, right? Wendigo. We're just going to leave you alone now. And then he dies.
Yes, he chooses not to eat the other guy.
He chooses not. Yes. End of movie. I'll just go with my first thought. I had never seen this movie. I had never heard of this movie. But doing research, it seems to be a very big cult classic, which is funny for me. Have never heard of this. I mean, this is 1999. I was watching horror movies all the time. I don't know how I missed this movie.
Like I said, I mean, this was like the kind of stuff we were into at the time. So I had a friend of mine turn me onto it, and yeah, I watched it. I mean, I was around that time. I didn't see it in the theater or anything, but I saw it around that time. I remember the movie. I remember all the plot points. I remember everything that happened. I don't remember the wackiness. I don't remember that at all. And I was watching it. I'm like, I don't remember this tone. Like, what is happening? Why is this goofy music playing? I don't remember that at all.
Oh, we'll get into that. Don't you worry.
Yeah, so that I didn't remember, but other than that, I remembered the movie. I mean, it was it's a decent movie. I remember watching it.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like this movie kind of got overlooked just because it was 99, and then we had the whole Y2K craze just kind of like sweep all horror sides.
Well, it was end of the world. End of the world horror was king at that time.
Right. So something that took place in the 1800s about cannibals was easily swept aside. And it's probably what happened for me when it came out, quite honestly.
Right. Now, which one came out first, Ravenous or Cannibal the Musical?
Cannibal Musical, I believe, was 1997. Matt and Trey. Why don't you go first for your highlights?
All right, yeah. So I mean, for highlights, I mean, the blood and the gore was fun. I think it was done well. I mean, it's kind of like central to the theme of the movie, and I thought it was done well. It was fun. It was delightfully gory.
Yep.
Like you said, the cast was pretty great. I mean, at that time, I don't think anybody was really known. I mean, Jeffrey Jones was probably like the biggest name at the time. I mean, Guy Pearce was, I mean, he was like there, but I don't think he had any of his breakout roles yet.
I mean, we had 2 Scream movies at that point in time with Arquette, so he was.
Yeah, but he's more of a minor character. He's not even in it for half the movie.
Right. He's not a lead.
Right. So yeah, it's, again, now looking back on it, these guys have done a lot of good different things since then. But at that time, it was just kind of a mishmash of talented people that hadn't quite gotten their break yet, which is interesting. The Wendigo story is pretty cool. I mean, it's been in a lot of other media. Obviously, the same kind of similar story, but it's still fun to see. It's not, I don't think it's quite overdone yet. Or at least that kind of twist on it. And I liked that it had not one, but 2 twists in the movie, right? Twist 1 is, well, I mean, really 3, right? Because the first one is like, oh shit, this guy didn't survive being the cannibal. He is the cannibal, right?
Right.
Twist 2, he comes back and he's like, yeah, we got to get like a bunch of soldiers and go over the mountains. We got to kill this guy, right? He's like, oh, okay, meet your new colonel. Dun, dun, dun. It's the guy, right? That's twist 2. Twist 3, how'd you do all this evil shit? I was watching you the whole time. Oh no, Jeffrey Jones is still alive, right? I mean, there's really 3 twists that are interesting and fun, and you don't really expect them. And it's just, I thought it was well done. It was fun. What about you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with everything you said. Like, and I said, the cast was stacked. Like I said, looking at the app back at this, 24, 25 years later, yeah, it's just like, holy crap. Like, I know everyone in this thing, essentially. I thoroughly enjoy the Wendigo lore, right? It is a taboo lore that happens, saying, essentially you are never satiated. So no matter how much people you eat, it'll never quench or squelch your hunger, that you have to keep eating more and more and more to become further down that rabbit hole of transformation. And what's interesting is that usually the Wendigos are more animalistic and change appearance in a lot of lore and mythology that exists. But here they just end up just being people. Yes, they have magical properties from it and strength, but they never transform into this like grotesque creature that you're able to tell is like evil. And I think that's pretty unique take on it, because everyone tends to go down that creature feature path of it with Wendigos, I feel.
Yeah, I mean they could have done that for sure, but I think it's more interesting because the two twists, really the three twists in the movie could not have happened if that was the case, right?
Right. Yes.
Yes, because if he was like a werewolf, there's obviously none of that would have happened. It would have been a creature feature from the start.
Right. I said it's just, yes. I mean, obviously you're correct. If they just weren't human, yeah, it'd be quite obvious that they were, something wrong with them. And I mean, you can call it I don't know if you call it a good ending. I mean, he's obviously our main protagonist that we followed didn't, survive.
Well, I mean, it's good and it's bad. It's a good ending overall for the characters that were directly involved.
Right.
But it's a bad ending overall because the general ate the stew, which therefore perpetuates the Wendigo curse because he ate a person without knowing it.
Yes, he was very interested in that ever stew that is there.
It's just a stew, brother. I don't know where you're getting this ever stew. It's just a stew.
Well, I'm saying like typically there's always in old countries that you just had that stew going forever, right?
Right. But yeah, they didn't. They just had stew in this one scene. I don't know where you're getting it. It was always there.
I mean, ever stew, but I mean it's a perpetual stew. That's always, the fire's always going on it. They just add stuff to.
I know what a perpetual stew is. I'm just saying, in this movie, there's nothing to indicate that this is a perpetual stew. They show the guy literally cutting up all the vegetables and starting the stew, so it's not like it was there before.
Right. And the gore was good, as you said earlier. That it is a good amount. It is a healthy amount, and it's done pretty well, I'd say. I'll roll into my low points. The wacky ass chase music. Think Benny Hill, but like 1800s Benny Hill music is that chase music that's weird. Like, it's supposed to be like this tension building music, and it's just like this like comically bad music that was adhering to this chase scene.
Well, I think that's the thing that the movie does quite a bit, is that it has. I mean, it switches back and forth. This is one of my low points, but it ties into yours. So I'll just basically, the tone switches back and forth. Like, and I think the intro to the movie really kind of spells it out. Is they have like one quote to open the movie, right? It's like a Nietzsche quote, right? A very like in depth, don't look at too long into the abyss, or the abyss looks back into you, right?
Right.
And then it goes like, and then underneath it goes, "Eat me, Anonymous," and it goes, like it's a funny joke. It's like, what the fuck? Like, again, at that point, I was like, I don't remember this weird, goofy tone at all. And I was like, is this a fucking comedy? Like, I don't remember it being funny at all. But it does that. And then like almost like the whole scene of him being in the war and the dinner and him getting sent to the fort. I mean, I guess there's kind of like some comic relief in being like the guys in the fort are really not soldiers, they're a bunch of fuck ups. But it's not, they're not really any like comedic scenes there. They're just kind of like goofy people, right?
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, we get to this, it's a pretty like even normal tone. You know, there's a couple of little comic relief things when like, you know, David Arquette is getting high with the Indian guy. You know, I mean, but just like little scenes like that, but not like an overall comedic tone. And then all of a sudden we get to this chase scene and it's like, yeah, like you said, Benny Hill fucking music. Yeah. You're like, what the fuck? And they like literally chasing around like, you're like, like, what the fuck is going on? And then, but it's like people are getting murdered during this. And they're like, it's not like comedic murder. It's just like normal, like painful murder. But there's like goofy music playing. It's like, what the fuck is with the tone of this movie? And then after that point, it's all serious.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's so out of place.
Right. It's so odd. Like before that, there's a couple of scenes, like I said, that eat me in the beginning with the goofy noise. And then there's a couple of times where they like try to lean into like a little bit of wackiness, but it doesn't hit at all.
No.
And then yeah, this goofy chase scene is like the ultimate of it, and then it ends with like a guy breaking his leg and having to eat another guy to survive, you know, after sitting with a dead body for days, you know. Like this is not comedic stuff. I guess it could be done comedically, but it was not done that way.
No. And that like and to your point was it after, you know, Cannibal the Musical? And yes, it was. And like I understand this is like pretty deep and like taboo topics that they're showing for this movie, but yeah, that the like it's almost like that chase scene was like shot entirely differently, and the guy that was given the scene to do the music for was given a completely different scene from what we saw.
Well, I know, but that's it's funny because it's original music, and the guy made it specifically for this movie using like time appropriate instruments. But it like, again, it's just, it feels so, like you said, out of place where like he's using like era correct music instruments and musical like accompaniment, but in a totally wrong tone.
Right.
And again, but most of the rest of the movie is not like that. It's just like the music fits the tone. I don't get why they tried to make it wacky in a couple of parts. Overall, it just did not hit at all.
No, it gave me very reminiscent vibes of Grizzly. Just the tonal music was so out of place.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. I just remember the story. I don't remember any wackiness happening. Maybe it was like a normal thing at that time. I don't remember. I'll have to watch more like 1999 movies to see if that was normal.
I don't know. Like I said, that. And then, like, let's face it, the platoon, yes, they're as you said, they're a platoon or garrison of fuck ups. When the guy is frantically digging for something, like he's clearly getting a weapon, just fucking shoot him.
He wasn't getting a weapon though; he was just digging.
I'm just saying though, like this guy's off, and then no one saw anything wrong with it.
Well, and also the guy that they had watch him was the private that was ultra religious. And would not have hurt anyone anyway. So, like, if the other soldier guy was watching him, yeah, he probably would have shot him. But this guy, again, he's a very ultra religious, nice guy. Like, he wouldn't have shot him, even if he was a threat.
And then Robert Carlyle's character going, "Oh, the Mexicans coming across the border to be eaten. That's manifest destiny." Okay. Like their choices to try to lighten the movie just didn't hit, in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I know you're right. Yeah, I already went into a lot of mine with it was just the intro tone, the weird tone switches throughout. I did specifically write down the chase music because it's just so odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like he was walking with the compound fracture, which is, you're not gonna walk with a compound fracture. I understand that he like, ate some magic human meat and like that gave him some I guess energy, but like, yeah, he was still walking on a bone that was clearly sticking out of his skin. Like that is not a thing you can do.
No.
Like that that does not happen. But yeah, no, that's that. It's just the tone switching and the tone being off. And again, after a certain point, like I said, that's only before the midpoint of the movie. After the twist where we find out that he is now going to be in control of the fort and there's nothing he can do about it. After that point, there is no wackiness anymore.
No.
It's completely gone. It's just like weird that they put it in certain parts. I don't know why. I don't understand where that came from, but yeah, it doesn't really belong.
No.
Okay, so
you want to go first?
You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
You go first.
I mean, again, I remember this movie being better than it was. And it's just that tone, that weird tone, really like it knocks you off balance for like the first half of the movie. It really is a great cast. It's an interesting movie because it goes in a lot of directions you don't expect it to go into. There's a lot of like weird character arcs and development, just kind of for no reason almost. But it just adds a lot of character to the other people. So it's not just like, oh, these are people that are going to get killed. Like, a little bit about all the people, and
right.
it does it in an interesting way. It's just, these goofy tone shifts are just odd, and they're obviously put there on purpose. Like I said, the intro of the movie with that weird "eat me," and then the goofy, wacky noise. Like it was definitely done on purpose. It's just, I don't know. Like the first half was edited by someone that didn't watch the second half, or like they didn't communicate with each other. I don't know what was going on. But overall, I mean, it's a good movie that's just ruined by some weird tone switching. So I will give it 5.5. 5.5 Chuck Wagons out of 10.
Yeah, this is my first time having watched this movie. Do I think it's worth the rewatch? I think so. I think this could be, something that is an underknown gem. I want to see a different cut of the chase scene, or just different music.
Really, if they would re-edit the first half to just cut out the wackiness, I think it would be a way better movie.
Right. Like I said, I had to legit stop when that started. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Overall, it was a pretty decent movie. So I was gonna think 6 Chuck Wagons out of 10. Just a quick re-edit would probably give it 2 more points, honestly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would. Again, you take off because that's basically all my complaints is just the weird tone shifting.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So our final movie is going to be Bone Tomahawk. Now, I don't know if a lot of people have seen this movie, but I know a lot of people have heard about this movie. Because there's like one scene in particular that everybody goes, oh, you got to see this scene. I don't think it's as bad as people think. I mean, I've seen a lot of horrible shit in movies. I don't think it's that bad. It is messed up for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't think it's. I think it's put in the movie to give you the tone that it's looking for. Anyway, Bone Tomahawk is fairly new. When did it come out?
Was it 2015?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, but it's a modern-ish movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got an interesting cast.
Kurt 2015.
Russell. Yeah, Kurt Russell is the main star. He plays the sheriff. We get Patrick Wilson in a not James Wan directed film, which is interesting.
So Jesus related though.
Yeah, I know. That's in my notes. So yeah, Patrick Wilson is in it. He plays the husband. We get Matthew Fox, Jack from Lost, in like one of his rare film roles. You don't see him in too much stuff.
As a white cowboy, all in white.
Well, yeah, he basically like a soldier that was good at hunting, Injuns, and now he's like retired, like a rich Southern retired, I guess. And then the other guy is I know him from a lot of things. I can't think of his name right now, but he plays like the older kind of like a little bit like I guess dementia kind of. He's got a little bit of dementia, but he's like the backup sheriff, like a deputy.
Okay, so he's the other controller from Cabin in the Woods, opposite of the guy from Billy Madison
Right.
that was in Get Out. Yes.
Right. But he's been in a lot of stuff. But so he's like the old man. But anyway, so what it boils down to with the very, very beginning of the movie, we get a very, very late appearance by Sid Haig. Very brief. To where him and David Arquette are like a pair of bandits. And they basically like slit the throats of a bunch of travelers and steal all their stuff and then complain that they don't have enough stuff. And then they hear horses coming. So they go, oh no, we got to get up in the woods to get away from the horses, right? They don't want to get caught. So as they walk into this forest, they basically stumble upon like an ancient burial ground and then of course stumble and knock over a bunch of shit. And so they like upset the natives who we see are like they got a bunch of skulls in the walls and stuff that they don't look friendly, right? We don't see them, but we know that this is probably not an area you want to be in. So Sid Haig gets killed. David Arquette freaks out and runs. And then later on we were introduced to this town. I think was it Bright Falls or Bright
Falls, yeah.
Bright Falls. So what was the town in Darkness Falls? Never mind. I was like, isn't that the same name as the town? Bright Falls. So like I said, Kurt Russell is the sheriff. The old man Chicory is the backup deputy sheriff who's kind of like got dementia. I don't know. He's not all there in the head. It seems like he's just heavily distracted all the time. Matthew Fox plays the the kind of the great white hunter guy. And then we have Patrick Wilson, who's I don't know. I think he's a cattle ranch and foreman. I think he is. But he basically broke his leg trying to fix his own roof, and he's kind of like stuck in bed because his leg's broken. And so his wife is like the town doctor, and so this drifter David Arquette comes into town. The old man sees him burying some stuff before he comes into town, which is never a good sign. So he tells the sheriff goes to the bar and, he goes, hey, what are you doing? Kind of confronts him, and he kind of tells him to fuck off. And eventually, kind of traps him, say like, oh, I don't have any weapons. He's like, oh, because you buried him in the hole outside of town, and he tries to run. And so the sheriff just shoots him in the leg.
Poor Buddy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, Sid Haig's name was Buddy. So he uses his name Buddy, whatever. Yeah. So he gets brought to the jail. They need the doctor to look at it. The real doctor is all drunk, so they have to go get the Patrick Wilson's wife to look at it because she's also a doctor. So she goes to look at it, but it's really late at night, so everybody else has to go to bed. It's like the other backup deputy, who's the younger guy, stays to like watch over her, and then she's supposed to operate, take the bullet out, whatever, make sure he doesn't have a fever, and then the deputy's supposed to walk her home. Patrick Wilson wakes up in the morning. She's not there. Basically, the sheriff goes to the jail, finds that everybody's gone. So the wife, the other deputy, and the drifter, David Arquette, are all gone. And they find an arrow stuck in the wall. It's an odd looking arrow. Also,
the horses were killed, and a servant or handboy was killed as well.
Yeah, a stable boy was brutally killed. Right. So basically, they have like a professor in town who knows about the native tribes.
Professor.
Yeah, and they ask him what's going on, and he basically say this is like a tribe of like cavemen. Pretty much, right? Like all the other tribes were like, they kind of evolved into, being civilized and all that. And these guys just never did. They just kept like their weird caveman ways. They're just savage and cannibals and evil, and everybody just stays away from them.
Right. He even asked like, what's their name? They have no names. Yeah, they have no spoken words. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're just like animals. So they're like, oh well, why'd they kill this guy and didn't take him for meat? They're like, oh, they don't eat Negroes, which is old timey talk. But anyway, so whatever. They're also evil and cannibals and racist as well. So essentially, they decide, well, they have to go find him, right? So obviously the sheriff has to go because his deputy got captured and it's his responsibility as the sheriff. Patrick Wilson has to go even with his broken leg because this is his wife. He doesn't have a choice. He has to go. Right. So then the backup sheriff also convinces him to go. And then Matthew Fox volunteers because, of course, he's good at killing Injuns. Right. That's like his whole thing.
We don't know how many at this point in time.
Right. Yeah. We don't know. He just says a lot.
Right.
So like, okay. So they pack up everything. They get on their horses and they start riding. Like they're going to ride hard. So that's like supposedly 5 days away. They're going to get there in 3 because they're going to be riding hard and barely sleeping. So essentially they're riding hard and, they make camp. And nothing happens the first night. They ride hard the second night, that second day. And then the second night, they're having a regular camp. And then 2 guys come up going like, hey, how's it going? Like, hey, can we, come by your fire, whatever. And then, Matthew Fox just bang, bang, just kills him dead.
Yep.
And they're like, what the hell is wrong with you? He's like, yeah, those guys were scouts for a big raiding party. We need to get the hell out of here. We need to go to a different camp, a cold camp without a fire so that hopefully they don't find us. And they're all like, okay, you're a murderer. like this is bad, but at this point they need his help. So they're like, right. Yeah, there's going to be a reckoning later, but like, just we'll do what you say for now.
Right, and the deputy kind of goes and is like, they're wearing crosses.
Right, yeah, he's like, yeah, this is like murder, dude. Like you're the fucking evil. So yeah, so he's like, bitching a whole night long about how like you did it. That's wrong what you did. Like we're gonna have to do something about it. And the sheriff also knows this, but again, he knows he needs his help because it's 4 guys against. They have no idea how many people are in this tribe, right? So he's like, whatever, we need all the help we can get. He's just going to let it go. So they go to sleep. They wake up and Matthew Fox is being stabbed by
violently stabbed.
Yeah, being stabbed by another person. So yeah, Patrick Wilson wakes up and shoots the guy, but the other guys got away with their horses. Except for Matthew Fox's horse because he trained him to never let another person ride it, whatever. So they killed his horse instead of stealing it. Oh, sorry, they injured his horse instead of stealing it. He has to kill it himself. So now he's not only racist and genocidal, but now he's angry.
If it wasn't a white guy, his horse would not let him ride it.
Right, yeah. Again, he's very, very old-timey racist. So yeah, they're basically like, okay, well now we got to hoof it, right? Now we got to walk, and that's fine. But Patrick Wilson, as we said, has a broken leg. So they're like, we can't wait for you. You know what I mean? Like if we wait for you, by the time we get there, it's going to be too late. We have to keep moving. And he's like, that's fine. I won't hold you back. I'll move as fast as I can. Like, well, you'll be too far behind. And he's like, when you guys go to sleep, I'll still be moving. I'll catch up. Because he's determined to get his wife back at this point. So they do that, for the next day. They walk far ahead and then he catches up to them basically right before they're going to get up. But he basically hurts himself by getting into a fight with Matthew Fox, who says something not all that bad about his wife. It was kind of like an in joke, kind of like a flirty, jab,
it's like, if I'm the flirter, that's okay. I'm allowed to do that.
Well, bam. Yeah, but it was a harmless remark. But again, the tempers are high at this point, especially against him.
Yeah.
Even though he did murder those 2 guys, he was right. So, like, they were obviously scouts for another party because that's how they found them. So yeah, whatever. So
and they take his tincture of opium. I mean, come on.
Right, yeah. So they essentially, they're like, what are we gonna do? We can't leave him like this. His leg is infected. It's gonna get gangrene. So like their first thing is we're just gonna chop off the leg, and they're like, no, we're not doing that. So he's like, you do what you can. You give me this, tincture of opium, and then if I'm okay, I'll get up and follow you. You mark the trail. If I'm not, you come get me on your way back.
Right.
So okay. So they all get down there. They basically make it to the whatever they call them, troglodytes.
Yes, one of the valleys.
Right. So they get down to the troglodytes, and this is the area where Sid Haig and David Arquette were before.
Right.
So essentially, the three of them, the sheriff, the backup deputy, and Matthew Fox, all move in. Matthew Fox kind of takes lead, goes in there. They get attacked. Matthew Fox gets his hand chopped off first. They manage to fight off the first wave of them. But Matthew Fox is not looking good. Like, he is going to die. He doesn't want to live as a cripple. So he says, give me the dynamite. I'll make sure I get a bunch of them. And so they give him the dynamite, and then he just dies.
He gets what to a face? A bone tomahawk.
Right. Yeah. It's a tomahawk made out of a jawbone right to his head. And he does, no dynamite, no nothing. So they're like, okay, well, we got to go do this then. And then they go back to regroup, and they get attacked there, and that basically get slapped down, the weapons taken away. And then they get, so the sheriff and the backup deputy get brought up to the cave where they get put in the food cage. And we get to see like their inner base now. So they're basically in like the luau pit area. So in the other cage is Patrick Wilson's wife. She's still alive. She's still there. And the other guy in the cage is Nick, who's the younger deputy who was supposed to be the one watching over her. But he's not looking good. He's like kind of passed out. So either he was injured or whatever. We don't know. So they talk, and she basically tells them there's like 12 guys and then like 2 women that she saw. And so they're counting down, and they're like, okay, there's this many guys left. I think there was 9. I think there was 9 guys left because they killed 3 on the way.
Yeah, there's 12 or more, and then 2 women that were blind and had their limbs cut off.
Right. Yeah, so that they're like the mom from that messed up X-Files episode.
Oh, yes.
But she was only good for breeding.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was that. So they're basically trying to count down, and they're trying to like see what they can do to like lower the numbers, because they know that Patrick Wilson is the only guy coming, and he's got a broken leg. So they're trying to make it as easy for him as they can. So they basically trick them into drinking the tincture of opium that they had with them, and they take out 2 more.
Right, because they had 2 fingers worth.
Right. I guess
in
that's
there.
Well, whatever that it's opium, so it's like liquid heroin essentially.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, they trick them into doing that by like pretending to like drink out of this flask, and then they take it and drink it. So they take 2 more of them out. They come back later on very upset that this happened. But they eat Nick first. Now, this is the scene that everybody is talking about. They pull out Nick. They strip him naked. And they essentially flip him upside down.
Well, first they scalp him.
Yes, first they
and then
scalp
shove
him
the scalp into his mouth
to shut him up, right? Then they flip him over and chop him down the middle from the bottom in half. So they essentially like chop his pelvic bone in half with a bone tomahawk.
So they can rip him open.
And then they pull from both sides to tear him in half, chopping along as they go. This is the scene that everyone is talking about. It is a brutal scene, for sure.
Is.
Very well done, but a very very brutal scene. So anyway, so they witness that. And then later on, the sheriff gets pulled out and punished for making them drink the thing. They basically cut a hole in his chest and then stuff the hot flask that was in the luau pit in the hole.
Right, which then, stops the bleeding. So, okay.
Right, but I mean, it's still like very, very painful. And then they shoot him because the guy's got the repeater, but he doesn't know how to use it because, again, they're like troglodytes.
Right.
So he ends up shooting him in the leg once and then in the stomach once. And then Patrick Wilson basically comes in to the rescue. So when he's outside, he kills a couple, because he passes out from the opium, and then he wakes up hearing them and he shoots a couple, manages to reload, kills another one. So then they're down to 6, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they're down to 5 at this point. because So
and then he takes what he thought was jewelry out of the neck of a guy.
Right. Well, because they make this weird howling noise, but it's obviously like just blowing air like through like this weird bone thing in their throat. Right. And so it makes like this really weird noise. So he rips it out of their throat and is using it like a whistle
to lure them out.
Yeah, basically he makes the whistle and they come out going, "Oh," and then he just shoots them. And he does that with two more of them, and then I think anyway, he gets in there, he saves his wife, he saves the backup deputy. The sheriff is not doing well. He's going to die. He knows he is. But he's like, "Give me the repeater. I'll take out them when they come back to see what's going on. There's 3 left by our count. I can take out 3. I'll live that long." And so then they all leave. They basically help each other out. And then as they're walking away, they hear 3 gunshots, and they know that he took out the last 3.
Right. So he had to do that because they knew where the town was.
Right.
And like there could be no survivors to know to come back to the town.
Right, yeah, because they would come back for vengeance because they would have known it was them. Right. So so they had to make sure they got them all. So they heard the 3 gunshots on the way out. Technically, they didn't kill the 2 blind pregnant ladies, but I don't think they would be doing too well on their own out there. So
no.
And I'm pretty sure after they told the story, I'm pretty sure somebody would go there and like check it out.
You're right.
But anyway, that's the end of the movie.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is not my first time watching it. This is your first time watching it.
This is my first time. Absolutely. Yes. So I anyone that listens to this and Salem, that I tend to watch a lot of stuff with the wife, right? Assuming she's okay with it. But because of things that we have seen, things that we have watched, that people are talking about the bisection that occurs with the deputy, she's like, I don't want to watch it. And so I watched it by myself, and I finally got to that scene today. I'm like, that was is it hard to watch? I mean, is it disturbing? Yes. Is it hard to watch? No. I've seen people bisected in horror movies a lot.
Right, like I said, it's not that bad for us because we've seen way worse in movies.
Right.
But I guess for people watching a Kurt Russell
Western,
Patrick Wilson Western, yes, this is probably not what you're expecting.
Oh goodness, no.
Right. So there's a lot of people that were shocked by it, but like people like us watching it for the horror aspect of it would not be shocked at all.
No. And like I said, I finally got to that scene. I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. I guess I can see that being an issue for some people. But I mean, once again, my first thoughts when I saw the lineup, star-studded cast, hands down, another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, this one's stacked for sure. Like I said, Patrick Wilson's wife, I know it. I know her from other places. I can't think of her name. So,
yeah. And kind of like first thought was like after I finished, I'm like, why did it take me so long to see this movie? I have no reason for it to have taken this long for me to see it.
I know I've told you about it before.
Yeah, but I also think you talked to the wife about it, so she never watched it.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, but again, I know she has seen worse than that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely seen worse than that.
Yeah, if you're like, used to watching old classic westerns and you're like, oh my god, yeah, that would be like, oh, clutching your pearls, I'm sure. But I don't. As far as a normal like modern movie watcher, as long as you watch rated R movies, I don't think it's anything you haven't seen.
No, she watches a good amount of horror movies too.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's anything that she would have been out of the place. But no, I like I said, the star-studded cast, the effects are done really well, and we'll get into the highlights and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just like, I need to watch this again, quite honestly. I mean, what was your first thoughts and the rewatches for it?
I mean, yeah, the first time I watched it, I didn't quite know what to expect. Because I heard it was both a horror movie and a western. I was like, okay. And watching it, it's basically a western. Like, it's a western. The first like 3/4 of the movie, I would say, is just straight up western.
I'd say until they get to the troglodyte.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then the last quarter of the movie, then it's a horror movie for sure,
Yes.
right? But
Yeah.
it's like the first 75% is like just a Western. It's a Western classic tale of like, bad things happen. The sheriff and his posse have to go and, make it right again, right? Classic Western plot.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, but again, in a lot of Westerns, there's a lot of character development, right? Because there's a lot of like people traveling long distances together, like they have to get to know each other, right? It's impossible not to. So there's a lot of that. And again, like I said, the first 75% Western, the last 25% very much a horror movie. But we already know who all these characters are by the time we hit that horror aspect of it.
Oh, yes.
So now it's like all the characters that we got to know in the first 75% are now in the last 25%. And like the funny part is the Great White Hunter, who you'd expect to be the guy to help and save everybody, basically dies right
First.
as that happens. Right as the horror starts, he dies immediately.
Yep.
Which is interesting. And then Patrick Wilson, the unlikely hero, comes in and saves him, which is again another kind of a Western thing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So again, it's an interesting mix of the two because it is very much both of them. It is a Western and it is a horror. And you could argue percentages of what, but it is very much both of those things.
Right.
Which is an interesting mix.
All right. Do you want me to go first for my highlights? You want to go first?
You go ahead.
I said star-studded cast, hands down. Even Sid Haig's very small appearance.
Yeah.
Like anyone that knows horror, you see Sid Haig, you're like, oh shit, this is a horror movie.
Right. Like, yeah, he does. If he's there, it's horror in some way, shape, or form.
Right. And realistically, the other cast members, you can say all of them equate to horror. Kurt Russell has done a couple of things. Obviously, David Arquette with the Scream franchises, Patrick Wilson with his Jesus franchise.
Well, he's got two of them. Yeah,
I know. So, and again, the cast was great. I think the set pieces were phenomenal. I think that they really built those houses just the way they did. With like the doors not really doing anything. Like, hey, can you hear me outside? Yeah, you know what I mean. Even the mannerism that they spoke to was very, I feel, close to how they was spoken to in that time period. Now, obviously, Kurt Russell did, Tombstone, right?
Yeah.
So I think people kind of expecting like another Kurt Russell Tombstone type Western movie. No, it's really not. I think the character arcs were done really damn well. I think that they kind of flipped the script of you have Kurt Russell and Matthew Fox, and he's like, he said, like 116 Native Americans he killed. Like, oh shit, these guys are gonna say today. Nope.
Yeah, he's like out immediately. The only guys he kills in the movie are like two dudes who may or may not have been scouts for a raiding party. We don't know, but those are the ones that he killed.
Right. I think that the body horror effects were done spectacularly.
I think the last 25% really hinges on that, and I think they nailed it.
Oh, absolutely. I think just everything is like you take the attention to detail of a good Western that the writer and director did, and then do horror on top of it. Add cannibalistic horror on top of it. Really nails it in my head. The score is great. The tincture of opium, like I said, everything that they would have done is pretty good. Even with Matthew Fox setting up the bells and the tripwire, like he's seen some shit and he knows how to protect himself.
Right.
So I think that, like I said, the attention to detail was spot on. What about you?
I would say the cast was fucking great. I mean, like me and Patrick Wilson, I'm usually not a fan of Patrick Wilson, but I think he did really well in this movie. Matthew Fox was fucking great in this movie. I think he plays like a great guy who's seen a lot of shit and is trying to like be civilized and hold it together and is like barely there sometimes. Like he plays that really, really well. I mean, like really.
Right.
I mean, Kurt Russell is obviously fucking amazing. I mean, he does a fantastic job. But it's Kurt
Yeah.
Russell. I really don't know if he's done a bad job in anything he's been in. I mean, there's been a couple of like mediocre performances, but I don't know of any bad things he's done.
Right.
But anyway, he was fucking amazing. But I would say everybody did a fantastic job. And like you said, yeah, the gore and the effects were great. I want to also say that the troglodyte like look and makeup and everything was pretty awesome. Like they looked like bestial, right? They looked like evil kind of cavemen.
They looked like predators in Prey.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they were dangerous looking fucking people, and they didn't take any fucking shit. You know, they just yeah, they were mad at fucking Kurt Russell. They pulled him out, stabbed a hole in his chest, and then jammed the thing in there that killed their friends. You know, like they were not fucking around.
Right.
And I thought they did a fantastic job with that. Okay, I'll go into my low points here. Poor Sid Haig. He was looking rough, man. I mean,
know.
Again, Sid Haig is fucking great. He was still great now. It's just I just feel bad that they like make him act and make him walk around. It's like, dude, let the man relax. He looks like he's like feeling bad.
Right.
Just let him sit down. Like at least in 3 from Hell, he was able to sit down. You know what I mean? He was looking rough in that movie too, but at least he didn't have to walk, you know?
Right.
And then Patrick Wilson and his fucking God stuff. Like he had to inject it in there. He had to put like, you know, saying grace and thanking Jesus and all this stupid trash. It's just annoying. I'm pretty sure he just agreed to do the movie if they would let him put that in. Like, I don't know what is up with Patrick Wilson, but yeah. What do you got?
Someone saw Ravenous and we need David Arquette for this new cannibal western movie. They're like, do you know? Do you? I agree. Patrick Wilson like talking. You see this, Jesus? You see this shit over here?
Right.
You know. Do I think Patrick Wilson would outlast Kurt Russell and Matthew Fox in this movie? No, I do not.
Yeah, I can see him getting his hand chopped off.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Sid Haig was just atrocious to see him in the role of having to be in the fucking hot desert.
Right. Yeah, I was like, let the man sit down.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a lot of language in here that is difficult to hear sometimes, the thinking that the unfortunately African Americans were like poisonous.
Well, yeah, again, this is the backwards thinking of the time period, but I mean again, we're still in the Civil War recently ended. So
Right.
There's a lot of stupid ass opinions and I mean, look at the science of like the racial science of the time period. There's all kinds of stupid shit that they were saying.
Right.
I mean, and all this shit was disproven. I mean, until the Nazis tried to bring it back for a bit there before they got slapped down again. But yeah, like it's all pseudoscience. It's not real. But people of that time period believed that anyway because that's what they wanted to believe. It's easier when you want to.
Yeah. And the waste of Sean Young. Like it was a weird middle ground that they didn't really get into. Like, yeah, the mayor and his wife, who's clearly the mayor, being Sean Young, was just had all the say in anything. The guy goes, I don't want to spell troglodyte,
Right.
And then like, oh, you're deputy, and people are taking out your jail, and here's all these people in the fanciest dress who are going to the saloon.
Yeah.
Like no one gave a shit about like anything else going on there. Like they're all in their Victorian dresses with their like umbrellas, right?
Yeah, that's the way it was back then. You weren't allowed to leave the house unless you were wearing all that shit. But I feel bad for those people knowing how fucking hot it can be out there.
Right.
Like you got to wear like a full fucking 3-piece suit, like in that heat. Like they didn't have air conditioning. But I guess that would also make you more used to it. But still.
Right, but I also find it very weird that no one seemed to be bothered that a guy was killed. People were taken out of their town.
Well, they didn't really have a whole lot of time to think it over. I mean, they called like the main people to the bar. and that was it. And then they left immediately. Like there wasn't like they didn't have a town meeting or anything. They probably did after they left.
But it just seems so weird and out of place, that part right there to me. Because you think it's a small ass town, they would have, done something. And finally, the poor guy being called old man, despite being only 3 years older than Kurt Russell.
Well, that was, the character.
I know. I think it's great for it, but I felt bad for him being called old man. That's what I got. I said this is a fantastic movie. I'll go first then for Chuck Wagons out of 10. This, like I said, I was more than pleasantly surprised with this movie. I think this is what the pinnacle of Western horror can be, and done well. It's a period piece that has horror, right? So think of The Witch, but out west.
Right.
I will give this 9 Chuck Wagons out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed this. How about you?
Yeah, that's I do love westerns. I even love old westerns, not all of them. But I do love some of the old westerns. I love even the new westerns. They're great. And so I also like horror movies, so it's like mixing the two together is fantastic. So I agree with you. I give it 9 Chuck Wagons out of 10.
All right.
Anything else you want to add?
This was kind of a mixed bag, wasn't it?
Yeah. We get one in the middle, one terrible, one great.
Yep.
It's a mean episode. For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you bring us home?
All right. So, lights in the sky, farm animals mutilated, and of course, government cover-ups. Yes, we are venturing into some classic alien abduction films next week with Fire in the Sky, Communion, and the McPherson tape. Now, I'm excited to watch the McPherson tape because I need to see if like I said, we talked about this before, but there's this movie that I saw as a kid that scared me, and I kind of wanted to know, but kind of didn't want to know because I didn't want to rewatch it because I didn't want it to scare me again. But I'm pretty sure it's this movie, which was like a made-for-TV movie, like in the 90s, which was hard to find. So I'm interested to see if this is the movie or not, because I read the synopsis and there's some stuff that doesn't fit, but that might have just been my younger mind not fully grasping the the intricacies of what's been going on. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. I'm excited because we've discussed this on this show and offline because we both have the same memories of this McPherson tapes, right?
Right.
And we both have not watched it since it aired.
Yeah, I've watched it since whatever it came out.
93.
Yeah, whatever. I watched it when it was on fucking TV back then.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't. Again, that's one of the things that genuinely does scare me is aliens and like aliens like being in like your house, like home invasions and shit. That stuff scares the crap out of me. So, yeah, I might actually scare myself next week, but that's okay. But remember, we watch bad movies, so you don't have to.
And this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
And this is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.